Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals on YouTube for more videos like this. Sources linked below. Welcome! We're jumping straight into a quick regional news report today. We'll be looking at recent happenings across Greenland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands.
That's right. We've got updates on politics, some economics, and even a pretty unique personal challenge.
Okay, let's start with Greenland then. What's the latest?
Well, first up, China. They've publicly stated their, quote, full respect for Denmark's sovereignty over Greenland.
Oh, interesting. This came from their foreign minister.
Yeah, Wang Yi. He said this during a meeting with Denmark's foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, in Beijing.
And this follows that period of U.S. interest under Trump, right?
Exactly. So China's essentially saying we respect Denmark's position. In return, they're kind of hoping Denmark supports China's views on its own sovereignty issues.
Makes sense. And it was an anniversary, too.
It was, yeah. The 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Denmark and China.
Okay. What else is happening within Greenland?
Well, shifting to domestic politics, there's the matter of after-remuneration.
After-remuneration, right. That's the severance pay for politicians.
Precisely. So 18 former members of the Inatsisartut, the parliament, are receiving it after the recent elections.
And how does that work? Is it a standard amount?
No, it's based on their time in office. Minimum 3 months, maximum 12.
Gotcha. Any examples?
Yep. Doris Jacobsen Jensen and Peter Olsen are getting the maximum. That's 38,150 kroner per month for a whole year.
Wow. Okay, so over 450,000 kroners each.
Yeah. And others get payments for shorter periods. Even substitutes who filled in for a while get something calculated per day served.
And there are rules about receiving other pay at the same time.
Right. You can't get after-remuneration alongside regular parliamentary pay or government pay if you were in Nalakersuset. No double dipping.
Understood. Now, you mentioned something about East Greenland.
Yes, in Tasiilaq.
Yeah.
There was a demonstration. Citizens protesting what they see as neglect and isolation of their region.
Neglect by who?
They're pointing fingers at the self-governing companies and the local municipality, Kommuneskarfik Summersug. They feel ignored.
What are the specific complaints?
Several things. Concerns about Royal Arctic Line, cutting back shipping, potentially leaving them short on supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Air Greenland, possibly scaling back helicopter services, which they argue breaches the service contract.
Okay.
Then there's Iceland Air stopping winter flights between Iceland and Kulasuk, and also that the internet from Tusas just isn't good enough.
So a feeling of being cut off, basically.
Exactly. The demonstration was a call for authorities to, step up, take responsibility, and find real solutions.
Right. And one last thing from Greenland, something about running.
Yeah, this is quite something. Nivi Geisler is planning to run across the ice cap.
Run. Not hackcapping, not shouting shoes.
In running shoes, yeah. Her and a friend. If they do it, they'd apparently be the first women and maybe the first people ever officially recorded doing it that way.
That sounds incredibly tough. How far is it?
About 600 kilometers from Kangerlussuaq to Isertok. They reckon it'll take about a month, aiming for 20 kilometers a day.
Wow. Has anyone done it before?
There are, rumors of a man doing it, but nothing officially documented. So this would be a first in the records.
And they're looking for funding.
They are. Seeking sponsors for what's obviously a huge, challenging expedition in, one of the harshest places on Earth.
Definitely one to watch. Okay, let's move over to Iceland. What's the news there?
A big story involves a secret recording that surfaced. It's from back in November 2012.
Okay.
Relating to
the central bank case, the one involving alleged currency violations by the fishing company Samherji.
Right, I remember that. Who's on the recording?
It features Jonas Helgason. He was the lead investigator in that case at the time.
And who was he talking to?
2 former police officers, John Ulter Olafsson and Guðmundur Haukur Gunnarsson. They were working for a private investigation firm called PPP.
Okay, and what was the conversation about? Well, it seems Olafsson and Gunnarsson were trying to get information from Helgason about the Samherji investigation.
And what did Helgason say?
He mentioned it was probably unpleasant working in the central bank's surveillance unit then, that staff were anxious, but felt it was hard to stop the investigation.
Mm-hmm.
He also suggested investigators might have sort of moved away from looking at seized documents because they weren't finding much and were maybe focusing more on the accounting system.
Trying to prove fraud related to fish prices?
Yeah, that, and also trying to show that the management of Samherji's foreign subsidiaries was actually based in Iceland, meaning they should have brought foreign currency back home.
And Helgason didn't know he was being recorded? Or who the investigators were really working for?
He claims not. He says he didn't know they were working for Samherji or that the conversation was recorded.
And this PTP firm, they've been in the news for other things too, right?
Yes, exactly. There's been scrutiny over their activities, including alleged surveillance related to a lawsuit against the investor Bjørgulfur Dor Bjørgulfsson.
And PPP billed Samherji for this meeting.
Seems so. Time logs apparently show 4 hours billed for the meeting, plus 9 hours of prep.
Has Samherji commented?
They declined, citing lack of trust in the journalist reporting it and questioning the impartiality of the national broadcaster, Reaper V.
Okay, quite a complex situation there. What else from Iceland? Something about online shopping, I believe. Shine and Temu.
Yes, a Nordic study found that a really high percentage, 71% of low-cost products bought from places like Shine and Temu contain hazardous substances.
71%.
Oh.
Substances banned in Europe?
Banned in the European Economic Area, yes. Things often found in cheap electronics, soft plastic toys, that kind of thing. Inexpensive jewelry, too.
So what are Icelandic authorities doing?
They're looking at measures to tackle this, especially for these cheap items shipped directly to consumers from outside the EEA.
Because the volume has increased a lot.
Dramatically, yes, since 2022. And tests show lots of products just don't meet legal standards for safety, health, environment. Like heavy metals, phthalates, flammable stuff.
It must be hard to regulate these platforms, though.
It is. The dropshipping model makes it tricky. The sellers often don't hold stock themselves and might be outside EU enforcement reach.
So the advice is basically buyer beware.
Pretty much. Authorities are stressing consumer awareness. If something seems suspiciously cheap, its safety standards are likely compromised.
Good advice. Okay, let's turn finally to the Faroe Islands. What's happening there? Starting with the Suðuroy Tunnel.
Right, that's been a hot topic.
Yeah.
The issue has actually been sent back to the Finance Committee in the Luktingi, the Faroes Parliament.
Sent back. Was it close?
Yeah, the vote was 17 in favor of sending it back, 15 against. Right after that, the speaker announced the start of the summer recess.
So more debate needed, essentially. Is everyone happy with that?
Not quite. One politician, Jarni Hammer, was pretty blunt, saying sending it back to committee is like throwing it away.
Strong words. So there's uncertainty about when it comes back.
Yes, apparently other politicians are quite keen to know when the Finance Committee will finish its review and bring it back to Parliament.
Okay. Moving to the economy, specifically aquaculture. Bakkafrost.
Yeah, Bakkafrost reported low salmon prices for the first quarter of 2025.
Why low prices?
Mainly increased supply coming out of Norway. They've had good biological conditions, apparently, boosting their exports significantly.
But how did Bakkafrost itself perform?
Pretty well, actually, biologically speaking, both in the Faroes and in Scotland. Good growth, low sea lice numbers in the Faroes, harvesting big, high-quality fish.
And their smolt production?
Still going strong.
Yeah.
Setting records for high-quality, large smolt raised on land, which helps production and costs.
What about Scotland? They've had challenges there, haven't they?
They have, but they're focusing on that strategy of using large, high-quality smolt to tackle the biological issues in the sea farms there. They're making progress, increasing production at their Applecross smolt facility.
So they expect improvements.
They anticipate significant improvements in Scotland once these bigger smolt go to sea. And their other big projects, Skalavik Smolt Facility, expanding the feed factory, are apparently on track.
And harvest volumes overall?
Up in both regions compared to the same time last year. Almost 19,000 tons in the Faroes and over 6,000 tons in Scotland for the quarter.
Okay, let's look at wider Faroes trade now. Exports.
Mixed picture. Mackerel exports did really well in value terms, up over 640 million kroner between April 24 and March 25. That's a huge jump, like 68%.
Wow. Was that volume or price?
Mostly price. The actual volume only went up by about 9%.
But overall fish exports
Actually decreased slightly in total value, down about 97 million kroner, or 0.8%.
So while mackerel was up, others were down.
Exactly. Exports of salmon, cod, herring, capelin, they all declined. Salmon value dipped a bit, even though the volume increased over 13%.
So the price per unit for salmon must have dropped.
Seems that way. And also the combined export value for things like feed, fish meal, and fish oil dropped quite significantly, by nearly 1 billion kroner.
Okay, what about imports? Any shifts there?
Yes, a noticeable shift. Importing less from the USA, more from China.
And the overall import value?
Down quite a bit, nearly 1.2 billion kroner.
Why the decrease?
Several reasons. Less import of raw materials for the fish industry, lower imports of fuels, fewer ships being imported.
Fuel prices coming down, maybe?
Partly price, partly volume, yeah. Fuel and oil imports dropped by almost 300 million kroner. And machinery, engines, ships, vehicles, that category saw a big drop too, over 630 million kroner. Ships alone accounted for 355 million of that.
Okay. And just quickly, a few other political points from the Faroes sounded like brief mentions.
Yeah, very brief. First, a statement from Jørgen Niklasen, a politician, saying the government is not in control, Landsstyret ikke styrer Burundi. So it suggests maybe some instability.
Mhm.
Second, reports that pension issues are being, quote, taken aback. Pensjonsmeldingen vi taking after. So maybe reopening discussion on pensions. And finally, just a note that apparently several individuals have withdrawn from some kind of agreement. Skilji at Flerero Lopen Fras and Juni. It's not clear what agreement, but suggests a lack of consensus somewhere.
Okay, quite a lot happening across the board then. So that's a quick rundown of some key stories shaping the North Atlantic region right now. From political moves in Greenland and the Faroes, economic trends, that amazing ice cap run.
Yeah, a real mix. Hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of what's been going on.
We hope this fast-paced overview has been helpful. Like and subscribe to Pulse Fundamentals on YouTube for more videos like this. Sources linked below.